Hey guys, my name is Jason, and today we're going to be doing part 6 of a series where I go to different retail locations and we look at Overland gear. This one's a little bit different because we're going to be lumping Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop into one. They have mostly the same stuff, so we're going to go ahead and focus on both of those at the same time. Alright, so if you're wondering why this is Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop, these are the exact same companies. I just chose Cabela's because that was the closest one to me. There is a Bass Pro Shop here. Maybe your town will have just one or the other. We have both. Alright, so we're going to start off with sleeping bags and sleeping pads. They actually had a surprising amount of sleeping bags in here. Basically, one entire corner of the store was just sleeping bags. They had a few different brands that I wanted to cover, starting off with this Cabela's Outfitter XL rectangle in a 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Now this one's great as long as space and weight aren't an issue. This would really likely be a perfect winter sleeping bag. In store I could only find the 0 degree Fahrenheit, but there's actually a -20, a 0, and a 20 bag. I have a similar style from Browning, but this one is actually made with a cotton canvas shell, which should actually be a lot more durable. The next one is going to be this Cabela's Mountain Trapper rectangle 0 degrees, as well as the 20 degrees for $10 cheaper. This one is also a cotton canvas shell bag that has a wide range of warmths ranging from 0 to 40 degrees. Just remember that these ratings are survivability ratings, so if you're camping in 50-degree weather, a 40 bag would actually probably be just right. The next brand I want to cover is the Kelty brand. Kelty is a brand I really like. I have a few things from them. They're a little out of my price range, but these are going to be the synthetic, so they are going to be a little bit cheaper. The first is a 20 degrees one for 80 bucks, but it's a mummy. For most people, I don't think that would be a problem, but for me, it's just really not an option. I need the leg space to be able to move around, and the mummy bag just really makes me feel claustrophobic. All of the Kelty bags that I saw were mummy bags, so if you also don't like mummy bags, maybe they're not for you, but they do have a wide range from synthetic all the way up to down, but just know that the down is obviously going to be a lot more expensive. Now the last one is the Ascend brand. This is something I've really only seen at Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop, but from what I've seen in forums and read online, they're actually a pretty good brand. Now I know I talked a lot about mummy bags as being a deterrent, but if you're trying to keep things lighter and want a smaller bag for less money, they're actually really great. Being that I'm more in the Overlander category, I sort of treat myself and get myself some leg room. If you're a backpacker or a thru hiker, then the mummy bag and also a full down would actually be a little bit better for you. So something that I've learned to appreciate as I've gotten older is the sleeping pad. The first one we're going to start off with is the Ascend. Just like the sleeping bag, this is sort of something I only see here. This sleeping pad cost about as much as mine was years and years ago, but also has a pretty good R value for its price range. When it comes to sleeping pads, I wouldn't really recommend anything under an R value of about 4. This pad is a 5.6. They had a ton, but I think this was the best one that I could find in this price range. Like I said, check out some other ones that they have, but this is probably going to be my recommendation for what you would want to get. Also, while I was there, I saw this Escape Bivy that wouldn't really be my first choice, but it's a sleeping bag style emergency reflective blanket. I have a few emergency blankets that I keep inside my vehicle, but I thought this was really cool because it's actually an emergency blanket and a bivy. But if you want to keep it cheap, just go ahead and get a normal emergency blanket. It's about 1/10 of the cost and it works just fine. But I would recommend 100% that you guys do get an emergency blanket and keep it with you pretty much wherever you go. So if you're a solo camper and you want to keep things light, this Ascend 9-mile tent could be a really good option. These wouldn't personally be my first choice, but this would be really great if you have a mummy bag and you want to keep things very compact. They also have a 3-person here that is likely a better option, but the price is pretty high comparatively. Personally, even if you're a solo camper, I would kind of recommend going with the 2-person Kelty Tanglewood over here. This is just going to give you more space to put items around you. Kelty is a very well trusted brand, and for only $85, this is not that bad. They also have a 3-person here as well. I would say the 3-person on most tents is better for 2 people. 2-person is better for 1 person. Just noticed that the ratings are a little bit off on a lot of these. If you want more space, just go for the 1 person above what you have. If you want to go even cheaper, this Bass Pro Shop Weekender 3-person tent is also a really great option. It is going to be very basic, but at its price, it's really a hell of a deal. If you need a larger tent, this Coleman 4-person is really great. I've talked many times about my love for Coleman products, and I have the older version of this tent, but in a 3-person. Should be plenty of space. I feel like I'm always recommending hammocks in these videos because I started off camping in a hammock for many years before I switched off to the current tent. These are pretty well priced hammocks for a double nest. Personally, I would always recommend getting the double nest as it's really better for one person. I have an Eno hammock, which they do carry, but the Grand Trunk seems to be one of those hammocks that everyone keeps raving about in the comments. In my mind, most higher end hammocks are about the same and you can really get any of these brands. But my Eno, just from personal use, I've had for about 12 years and at this point it's just still going strong. So I used to camp in mine, but I still bring it to basically just kind of chill around camp, and it works really great there. The last one is going to be this truck tent here. So it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. It gives you a similar feeling to a rooftop tent being off the ground, but it's nowhere near the price of a rooftop tent. This tent is still $300, but even the cheapest rooftop tents are 3 times the price of this truck bed tent. The downside of this is that it really only works for a truck, so if you have an SUV, this just is not going to work for you. So kind of a little miscellaneous here while we're talking about tents. I always recommend getting a repair tape and a patch kit. Also, I would recommend getting zipper lube. I had the zippers in my old tent break due to stress from the zipper, and from now on, I 100% always put zipper lube on all of my zippers. Alright, so this next one is camp chairs. I'm a big fan of the cheap chairs because I'm pretty comfortable sitting pretty much anywhere. Usually the cheap chairs aren't super comfortable, but this one is extremely comfortable. I was honestly a bit shocked actually. These had a really great bounce to them and had the hard armrests, and it was also very cheap. The next chair falls into the cheap category. It's a cheap chair. It feels cheap, you know, it's only a few bucks cheaper than the other one, so I would just go for the first one I talked about here. After that, we have this hammock chair, which is by far the most expensive one, but it is incredibly comfortable. I have a hammock chair myself and I really love it, but it was about half the price of this one and I got that at Walmart. I will say the comfort in this one is pretty much unmatched. This is a lot more comfortable than mine, but it's about double the price, so it's really up to you which one you want to go with. Alright, so for this one I kind of lumped in lighting and electric just because I didn't really know how to put the electric stuff in there. So they did have this panel Coleman light that I talked about, but they really only have the 4-panel one, and that's the most expensive one. It's a little bit overpriced. If you really want to get these 3-panel ones that I have, I'll drop a link to an Amazon one you can find below. They also had my Lucy light there, which I always recommend. This isn't super bright, but it's great for ambient lighting inside your tent or around campsite. I talked about it before, but I also like this one because it packs down real small and it inflates up so it spreads the light really nicely. They also had this tiny version of it as well, but it's really only a few bucks more to go for the full-size one, so I don't know, I would probably go for that one. They also had this little keychain light for emergencies. This one's really only 15 lumens. I have an O light that has 150 lumens and is only a little bit bigger, and it was only a little bit more expensive, so that's really your call, but it'll get the job done in an emergency. You know, another downside is that my O light is rechargeable, but this one's on batteries. You know what? I'll just drop a link below in the description to the O light because I highly recommend that one, and I don't think I've talked about that too much in these videos. So headlights are probably the most important camp light because they don't eat up a ton of electricity and they light up pretty much wherever you're going very well. The first one I'm talking about today is this Black Diamond 400 lumen light. This one actually happened to be in the wrong place. It was really $50, but $50 for 400 lumens is a really great deal. It's Black Diamond, which is a really trusted brand. So when you're looking for a headlight, you want to get one with several modes, just like this one. The most important for me is the red light function, which still illuminates really good, but it doesn't attract bugs. It also won't blind every single person that you look in their direction. If you want to go even cheaper, they even have a 250 lumen one, which is still pretty decent amount of light output as well. I keep seeing these Nebo flashlights everywhere. They have these at Ace Hardware, but you know, anyways, they put off a ton of light for their price. 1500 lumens, which is way brighter than you think it is. Plus, it's rechargeable. For only $19, you'll get a 750 lumens, which is likely more than adequate for any of those around camp. The only downside I can see to this one is that it's AAA battery, which I just personally can never keep enough of on hand. They do have some other ones that have different lumen outputs, but I thought that these two were probably the best bargain for what you get. So I also want to talk about radios. They have a surprising amount of radios here. Personally, I've really only ever used the Midland ones. It's my personal preference, so I'm really going to be talking about those. So I have way more expensive ones than these, but these $30 X-Talker radios are probably all you'd really ever need on a budget. You know, as they get the job done on a budget, they're cheap, but they're not super fancy. They don't have all the, you know, add-ons necessarily. The last thing in this category is going to be the large Goal Zero section they have here. Now, I typically would go for my EcoFlow for charging almost everything around the site, but for a small one that actually jumps my car, I have a Goal Zero. This Goal Zero jump starter is actually very similar to these here. You know, the little mobile ones are great if you don't have to power a ton of stuff, but you likely have to go for these bigger ones at the bottom, which, like I said, aren't necessarily budget. Okay, so the first one is maybe a little bit of a stretch to put on the budget list, but you know, hear me out here. If you buy just the 2-burner stove, it's only 150 bucks. Once you start adding on all the accessories, then yeah, it gets a little bit expensive. So you may find that one or two of the accessories are something you need further down the road, but you can buy the $150 one and then kind of assess that later. The full kit itself is $270, but it's likely that you won't need everything that comes with it. This is a propane grill that can be used while camping. It's just not as compact as something like, you know, a Jetboil. But if you were kind of the go-to guy or girl that cooks at every campsite, this is a really great option to go. The Camp Chef Explorer itself is probably all you need, and that'll run, you know, 150 bucks. The next one is actually going to be my go-to grill when I'm not just putting my cast iron on the fire. I made a whole video about this one if you want to see more about it, but they're really great and they're totally affordable. There's also a ton of cooking surface on the griddle, so you can make quite a bit of food. If you want something basic with a good amount of BTUs, this Coleman Cascade stove might be the right one for you. Now, even though I'm always kind of recommending the Coleman products, this Camp Chef might actually be the way to go. Camp Chef is also a really great brand, so you know, you're not really losing out there. This one kind of hits home because right now I'm in the process of getting like a small grill for coffee, and I put a poll up on my Instagram and a ton of you guys actually recommended this MSR Pocket Rocket. This would be great for boiling water for coffee, or, you know, if you're going to cook MREs. It's more of a backpacking stove, but it's great for quick boiling water. So for about $10 more, you can go with the Jetboil stove, which is really kind of the top of the line. This one was another option for me in my pursuit of fast morning coffee while camping. With these two, you'll actually still need to get your own tin, but you know, a tin is not that expensive, so it might be the route to go. If you don't want to buy the tin, you want to get a perfect kind of all-in-one stove, then you can go with one of these Jetboils. This will likely be the next route I go, even though these aren't necessarily the most inexpensive things ever. So if you're just straight up on the tightest budget ever, I would kind of recommend just putting a pot on the fire, but you can also go for this Sterno folding stove. The biggest downside of these is the speed at which it cooks. You know, it's just going to be a very slow cook, but if you need to keep it light for some reason, you know, it's $7. It's really hard to beat, but again, it's a trade-off. This sort of falls in the same category, but if you've got your stove or you want to just cook over a fire, then I highly recommend getting yourself a good cast iron pan. I have a few of these in my camp gear and at home, and now that I'm thinking about it, I actually think that I only use cast iron. I not only recommend cast iron for camping, but they're great for the home use as well. So, but you know, getting like a Lodge one or something that's just a little bit more expensive, you can use it at home or while you're out. You can also go for an off-brand one that's even cheaper. You'll be set with really either one of these brands, but I just personally prefer the Lodge. As far as an entire cooking set goes, this is probably all you need, but if you already have a good knife, then you can just get yourself a microfiber and a spork, and you've kind of got yourself a whole kit right there. These 99-cent utensils are fine if you just want to buy a few of those, but I still personally recommend these eco spork things here. So while we were talking about JetBoil in the last section, they have a huge selection of MREs. These are really great to pack in your travel bin or drawers for an emergency. So this next one is heaters, but I'm also going to include propane fire pits because Colorado and California, some other states, there's almost always a fire ban at some point during the summer. During these fire bans, you're still allowed to use gas fire pits like the one I have. So this Outland fireball is very large compared to mine, which, while it's not super cheap compared to some other brands, it's still pretty budget. The thing I like about this one is that it's really nice, clean looking, so you can get good use of it out at camp. You know, you could probably use this at home as well. It looks really nice and clean. So another Camp Chef product in the mix here is this compact fire ring. This one's a bit cheaper and more compact, but it doesn't really have the same BTUs. Also, Camp Chef really seems to be making a big showing at Bass Pro Shop. So actually, funny enough, in between editing this video, I went camping and we had this exact same one. It worked great. I got no complaints about it. So yeah, actually, I do kind of recommend this one now. So as far as heaters go, you know, in pretty much every one of these videos, I almost always recommend the Buddy heater. The first one is the cheapest one that I've seen. I do have that one at home, but it's not my go-to. There's really not much of a base. It just kind of sits on the propane tank, so it's just not my favorite. I prefer the larger one so that it doesn't really tip over. I've never really had an issue with that, but just personally, I like the peace of mind that comes with the larger one. So if you do get one of these heaters, they actually do have the propane for it, but they're actually kind of expensive. So the last one in this category is going to be the fireproof matches for your fireplace. I actually use these exclusively at camp because they pretty much stay lit in any condition. You can go for these bigger ones in the container, or you can just get the smaller ones and refill them with the boxes. Camp tables aren't the most glamorous of camping items, but they're still super important. The first one on the list I really liked, and I actually considered buying myself. It's a large roll top table that actually feels really high quality. Everything I saw about this table indicated very good build and design as well. It's $99, which, you know, it's pretty much on par with most tables in this category. I believe my current table was $99 originally. If you don't need a huge table like this, you're just looking for something small, they have this CABELA'S one here, but it's only $35, so it folds down real small. It is real small, but it might work for you. So to start off with, I'm going to go with this folding shovel that I've pretty much recommended in every video that I've made. It's very versatile and also super compact. I have pretty much this exact one and I really like it. That being said, I also noticed this other shovel here that I thought was actually even maybe more versatile. You can use it as a shovel, or you can pull it back and it becomes a hoe. Also, if you unscrew the handle, it has a saw on it. Next, we've got a hatchet here. As you guys know, I'm a big proponent of the Fisker's axe and hatchet, but this hatchet is certainly better than not having one, and it's also pretty cheap. It's only 2.2 pounds and is very similar to my current hatchet, which sits in my molly panel. The next tool is something that not a lot of people think about, but I would consider a necessity. I have one of these kind of similar to this one that I got on Amazon. You know, I use this thing all the time. It's really great for removing tree limbs while you're off-roading, but it's kind of good for removing branches around sites so you don't hit yourself in the face, or if you need some, kindling. This also claims to be made of carbon steel, which is a huge bonus, and it's only $15. If you're going to be doing sort of any activity outdoor in areas where bears might possibly be located, I would very much recommend a good bear spray. I recently stocked up on one that I got on Costco, maybe a video coming soon, and I feel a lot more safe knowing that I have it. It's not an end-all be-all, so don't go around provoking bears, but it's nice to have just in case you're in a situation where a bear might be, the aggressor. It's also very important for you to have at least one pocket knife with you. Now, I've been working with Dispatch knives and, working with them, I really like that. But if you just have a Cabela's nearby, then these Kershaws are pretty great. Now, speaking of things I own, I really love my Leatherman rebar. I think this is kind of one section where spending a little bit of extra money is worth it. I plan on using this thing for many, many years to come, so I didn't mind spending, $30, $40 extra from something you can get on Amazon. Alright, so this is kind of the catch-all miscellaneous category. The first one on it is going to be first aid. There are a ton of first aid kits here, but so I have a video coming out soon sort of on this category, but these aren't really completely adequate. I would actually recommend getting yourself a trauma kit and, learning how to use it. I actually personally started working with Dark Angel Medical after being recommended by a flight medic buddy of mine. The next thing is going to be Gorilla Tape. I always bring this with me. You can always find a use for this at a campsite. This one isn't really budget, but these are the exact shoes that I have. So someone asked me in another video, I figured I might just include that because I really like these. They're very expensive though. So they also have a whole Black Rifle coffee section. I know a ton of you guys comment every time I've worn my Black Rifle coffee shirt, so if that's something you're into, this is a huge bonus. I actually ended up picking up some coffee while I was there. You can use it as a shovel, you can bend it down to make it a hoe. Okay,